Hi, and welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Do you have things that you need done around the house? Maybe a construction project, pergola, or maybe your roof needs to get looked at. Uh, Check out K&H Construction. Chris Helms, he's a local guy from Waxahachie. He'll come out and help you out. And let him know DV LeBron sent you. Today, my very special guest is Chief Weiser, the chief of Waxahachie PD. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, DV. Thank you for having me, sir.
Thank you for coming on. I really wanted to provide a crime update like I do every year. And this city, we were talking offline how this city is evolving and getting big, and there's just so many challenges. But first, I wanted to start off with a little intro so you can intro yourself to maybe some of those new people that have moved in.
You bet. So I'm Joe Weiser, Chief of the Waxahachie Police Department. I've served, if the good Lord willing, come November, I will have been here 35 years. Not all of that time is as chief. October of 2022, I was honored with the position of the Chief of Police. But I've been here for almost 35 years. And as we were talking offline, DV, I've loved every single minute of it. What an honor this has been for me to get to serve in this capacity.
Oh yeah, I could imagine. There's just so much that goes on and on a daily basis, and that all kind of falls on you. Buck stops with you. You know, if something's not working, is buck stops at you. So talk to me about the last time I saw you, we talked about all these different crime issues that are kind of going, and we're going to get into that. But talk to me about the last year, some of the good things that Waxahachie PD has done.
So surprisingly, even though we've seen tremendous growth by all estimates, the North Central Texas Council of Governments and the work that the city staff is doing has us at an estimated population at just over 50,000. Now, they're not showing that by census yet. That'll be during the next census we'll show, but the growth has been tremendous. And last time we talked, DV, I explained to you then that even though we've had this growth, that our crimes reported, our UCR, our NIBRS report would suggest that our crimes have been pretty static. And last year that was true as well. So we've been able to hold the line, and crime has not matched what you would expect with that kind of growth. And surprisingly, so far this year, it might be a little early to say for sure, but we've actually seen a little bit of a dip overall this year compared to last year. Now, we hope that holds true throughout the year. That will be phenomenal. Maybe we can get together again and I'll be able to report that good news to you. Mm-hmm. But so far, the first 6 months, we're showing with the exception of 1 month and a little bit of a rise compared to last year. All the other months for reportable crimes are down.
Talk to me about that, because that's awesome that they're down, and that is a wonderful news to everybody. I mean, it is to me. Now, talk to me about the violent crime in the city. That you've maybe experienced in this last year. What are some of kind of those that you're seeing? Is it mostly domestics, or you're seeing just a variety of stuff in the really violent crime that you've seen?
Yeah. Now, you'll always have the outliers, and we certainly in the last year had several incidences that were violent in nature. We had a shooting at one of our box stores here in town. We successfully made 3 arrests in regards to that one. We've had two ODs due to fentanyl, and those are always a concern to us, and certainly something we keep an eye on because that's a nationwide trend. Right now, if you look at that, it tends to be trending down also, as are violent crimes nationwide. And I think right now, early indications for this year is we're trending down on violent crimes. I hope that holds true as well, but it's something that we always give concern to. The fentanyl has truly been a problem nationwide, and one death due to that is one too many. And we've certainly had 2 within the last year since last you and I spoke. It's certainly something of concern to us.
I definitely wanted to bring up fentanyl, but since you brought it up, Chief, you said two deaths, 2 overdose, way too many.
Yes.
One of the scariest things in the law enforcement profession as of late is that you're doing a search or you're checking something out, and then all of a sudden you start feeling really queasy. And next thing you know, you're staring up at the sky and they're trying to bring you back. So What are some of the things your officers have been dealing with? Have any of the officers been exposed to that and needed like Narcan or something? And what are some of the safety things that you've done to try to prevent the officers from being affected by it?
That they are exposed to it routinely. We haven't had an incident where an officer has fallen out yet. They do receive training in that regard to know what to look for up front, and then also training in the regard to know how to revive themselves if the circumstances allow for that, and certainly revive their partners. Second to the training is to make sure they have the necessary tools. And you mentioned it, Narcan. It's kind of a miracle, and we equip each unit with Narcan. And also here at the station, especially in the areas of evidence and things like that, they have instant access to Narcan there as well. So training, give them the necessary equipment to be safe. And then it's just a matter of being ever vigilant with what you're dealing with. And it's, you don't always know what you're looking at. Anything could have that fentanyl in it. It usually comes in pill form, but not always. You can see it in powder form as well.
Talk to me about that, because there are parents, that are dealing with kids that may be getting exposed to that. What are some of the things that you've seen that this fentanyl's in, and that the kids, parents should watch out for? And these kids who, you don't want them to do it, but if they're gonna do it, they need to pay attention. Can you kind of talk on that?
You bet. So Percocet, the pill Percocet, is what I would say arguably is the most prevalent pill that you'll see out there that has been laced with fentanyl. It's marketed as such on the black market, if you want to call it that, and made available to all people, and certainly kids as well. You might see it in powder form. I would say that we see less of it in powder form. Every now and then, on rare occasion, you might see a cigar or something like that that's been soaked in that. I wished I could give the parents a magic bean, but it would be, if I did have a magic bean, it would be vigilant and understand that any kind of drug or any kind of suspected narcotic could be laced with that, and not anything that you would want to take lightly.
How about some of the other drugs like meth, and what are you seeing as far as the drug patterns? Is like heroin making a comeback? What are you seeing in the city?
Well, you mentioned meth, and definitely I would say far and away the biggest problem in this area of Texas is meth. It's cheap, it's fairly easily accessible. And when I started my career, DV, crack cocaine was very prevalent. And, that's very cyclical. And not to say that that is not still a problem, but I would say far and away that methamphetamine and those products have become the primary drug of choice, and what we see on the street more than anything.
So the cops are running into it when they're doing these the stops, and just in general, it's just,
Yes.
Would you say it's everywhere, or it's making a bigger comeback with this fentanyl dropping?
I would say that it's certainly, when I mentioned crack cocaine when I first started, certainly meth existed then, but far and away now. And, it's much easier to manufacture now, and that creates more of a market for it. And one of the things that I would say compared to years ago is when you would say, like, make a raid or something, you would have small amounts of methamphetamine. It's not uncommon now to literally get it by the bucket.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now the synthetics, because there's some issues with that. Some of those synthetic things that I've seen somebody swimming on concrete thinking they were in a pool. So it is a thing, and they're readily available. Have you run into that?
Yes, we've seen our fair share of that. DV, I don't know how familiar you are with the legislation is just winding up in Texas. And there was a very important bill that was sponsored. It has passed and is sitting on the governor's desk as we speak, waiting for either a signature, a no signature, and a no signature would be tantamount to it going into law, or a veto. And if you'll remember, back in 2019, the legislature passed some laws that allowed for commercial sale of hemp, growth and sale of hemp. And the manufacturers saw a loophole in that. And that's why you started seeing all of these stores pop up all over the state. And what we in law enforcement have seen is those oftentimes, or not solely, but oftentimes are marketed to children. And what we're finding is there's no regulation on that, and you don't know what you're getting. And much of what you described with that person swimming on concrete, that they're hallucinogenic, and some of the kids, young kids that have gotten on that, have sadly not come back, and they find themselves with psychosis like that.
Mhm.
It's anybody's guess. And there was a press conference that Lieutenant Dan Patrick, who has sponsored that bill and championed that bill through the legislature, was making comments about not knowing what is in that product. And child or not, anybody is taking a chance when they do that. And the current bill that's sitting on the governor's desk would outlaw and close that loophole. It remains to be seen if it will be passed or not.
Yeah, that was a hot topic, just in general.
Yes.
Marijuana, just and there's some who talked about the civil liberties of that,
Yeah.
and then there was others who were like, look, we just want to ban it altogether, not even mess with it because the THC content is too big, and there was so many arguments and discussions happening in Austin about drugs. It was nice to see the discussion happening.
I agree.
Definitely.
It's a complicated issue. There's no doubt about it. And the world we
Yeah.
live in is changing rapidly. For law enforcement, our job is to protect people, sometimes from themselves. And
Right.
so you might guess, as a whole, law enforcement, I think, is pretty passionate about and serving in that function.
You mentioned psychosis. Are your officers trained? Because there are some people. There was recently an autistic kid who he was in his yard and somebody said he had something. I don't remember the exact thing, but anyway, it ended up in him being shot by the police and killed. And it was a very ugly incident. It
Yeah.
you know and I don't second guess. There's so many things that happen in those split moments, Chief, and when somebody has a knife or something, they could close a space of 15 feet real fast. It's just there's so many things that happen. But that said, an autistic boy got killed. So talk to me about some of the trainings you've had with your officers on dealing with anything from any kind of mental issues or even things like autism, because they're running into people like that.
You bet, DB. And I appreciate that question. And I enjoy the fact that I can speak to that a little bit. So one of the things that I'm the most proud of the Waxahachie Police Department is every sworn officer is a certified mental health peace officer. That's 40 hours of training to get that certification. And then we don't stop there. We continue on and we partner with several local entities here to continue education for those purposes. And we've really come a long way in the industry. And I'd like to think that the Waxahachie Police Department is taking that even further. One of the things that you're seeing is a change nationwide, and we've adopted that. We're in the early stages of it. As we grow, we hope to do it even more. But if you think about it, DV, for years, police officers have to be trained in tactics that are intended to help their survival under some terrible situations. We give these officers training and then tools that are intended to help them stop violent behavior. And then we send them out historically on calls and deal with people who are in mental crisis. So if you think about it, it's almost a recipe for disaster. And it's amazing that we don't have more incidences just like you described nationwide. And I think one of the things that has changed over the last decade is law enforcement as an industry has seen the need to make some changes there. We currently have an outward-facing crisis support team that are non-sworn police officers that work up front when they can, and then certainly in follow-up with people who have experienced mental crises. And we just now went through a process, and hopefully here within the next several weeks, we're going to assign our first sworn certified mental health police officer to that team. Now, the ultimate goal, DB, as I see it, is to have a team that would respond to those crises. The team would be made up of certainly police officers, in a best case scenario, paramedics, and then the crisis support counselors. Short of someone in a crisis that is acting out in a way that it would require, defensive tactics, the officer would be the last one to respond. It would be in the back of that response. The first would be the mental health professionals and the paramedics for the medical purposes. And in a best case scenario, the police officer would be there just for the backup. Certainly, if the circumstances changed and that person was acting out in a violent way that would require the combination of that response and maybe some tactics to take them under control and then turn them over to the medical professionals, both mental and physical, that's what we see as an ideal situation. And certainly we didn't create that model here in Waxahachie PD. We're trying to adopt it as fast as we can and as fast as resources allow. Several years back, we had several council members that supported that completely. It comes at a cost, as you might guess, and we were very fortunate for them to see the benefit of that. They got behind it and supported it, and we're entering into year 3 for that outward-facing crisis support. And our intent is to grow that and maybe be part of a change in how law enforcement responds to those situations in hopes of reducing the times and incidences just like you described.
Chief, is there a different use of force continuum when you're dealing with mental health? Like, I know that as law enforcement officers, and I may have the wording old school, but there's a use of force, that model that you have to go through. Does it change when you're dealing with mental health?
Yeah, it does, DV, in that the key there is de-escalation. Now, you would want de-escalation when any circumstances allows for that. But certainly in a mental crisis, what's required is patience, calmness, and de-escalation. Now, every once in a while, as you might know, DV, the circumstances don't allow for that. And those are the times when you see some of these horrible situations. And you hope for the best. But the idea is to try to reduce the times that's going to enter into it. That's the whole concept behind that team approach and having people other than just law enforcement respond to that. If you think about it, DV, we kind of set that up for failure. And again, I think it's amazing. Police nationwide make about 1 million contacts per day. And, when you look at the statistics on that, a lot of people don't think about that. But when you look at the statistics on that, it's pretty amazing. I think that very few industries are able to show the statistics of how we deal with a lot of people under some terrible circumstances. And you would think that we would have a lot more of those kind of incidences. Thankfully, we don't. We credit that to training, giving people the necessary tools and the necessary resources. And it appears that nationwide, the people who hold the purse strings are coming to realize that there's other ways to do this, but it's going to take the resources to do it.
There is a lot of contact. It is amazing how much contact you make on an officer and on a daily basis with the public, and no incident is happening. It's just good contact, and so sometimes it's just a positive experience. A lot of times it's just a positive experience.
Yeah, you don't often hear about those. You certainly hear about the others.
Well, those don't make the news. Those are not juicy, I guess.
And to a certain degree, you want to know about them because the idea there is to learn from it. What can we glean from that, and how can we get ourselves to a better place?
So talk to me about property crime, because, property crime is something that online things are a little more amplified. Unfortunately, it's part of what I do. I have to be online and do this, but people have talked about their cars being stolen, certain areas being hotter than others. Where are you seeing property crime rates rise, and what are some of the things that you'd like to tell people about how to prevent from being a victim?
You bet, PD. I appreciate that question as well. Although our property crimes are at static, or it appears to be lessening, you're always going to have situations where like break-ins of vehicles and then the outright theft of those vehicles. Naturally, those are going to occur more in crowded parking lots, more opportunity for people to capitalize on that choose to the criminal element that choose to capitalize on those kind of things, or looking for that kind of possibility. Car lots are also one that we see where cars are stolen. Recently in this region, when I say region, in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, we've had several rings that were operating. Fortunately, they were taken down. Two such rings were taken down. over the last 4 to 5 months, and some of those stolen cars came back from the Waxahachie area, so we were thankful for that. But the business that we're in, there's always people to take their place. Property crimes are static. One of the things that we're seeing nationwide, and certainly here in Waxahachie, is the fraudulent type crimes and the crimes of opportunity for the internet theft, kind of like what you were mentioning there. With the advent of AI at the forefront, our concern is that there will be more opportunity for people to take advantage under AI. It's so new to us that we're just now learning all those possibilities, trying to keep that in perspective. And then also, how can we use AI to our advantage? We expect that the criminals will use it to their advantage, and to what degree will those resources be available to law enforcement to combat those kind of crimes?
Yeah, that's exactly a question that I wanted to ask you. How you're using, because you got to stay on top of technology, because if you don't, it's going to put you at a disadvantage. Is there stuff coming out to you for officers or just in general police departments to use AI to their advantage?
Yeah, it's changing rapidly. We're trying out a program right now that aids the officers in their report writing. That's one level of AI that we're using. So far, we feel like the reports that we're getting there are better reports and more accurate. It's in conjunction with the officer's information and also their body-worn camera video capture. And we're in the early stages of trying that out. It's not anything that we've purchased yet. We wanted to do our due diligence before we looked at that. We do have some softwares that we have purchased previously, one of which that can be controversial, and that's facial recognition. It has proven extremely effective for us. I can tell you, not in Waxahachie, but one of the best ways I know to describe that to you is there was a gentleman that was a sexual predator of children, and they had a particular video of him, but couldn't get him identified. And they put that picture in the system, and oddly enough, two people in California, a couple that were bodybuilders, won an award for bodybuilding. They snapped a picture, and about 20 feet behind them, there was a juice bar, and the gentleman was working the juice bar, and
Get out of here.
it matched his face. And so they did the backtrack and were able to find out who was operating that juice bar and who had hired him. And that gentleman was arrested for child molestation. Kind of an extreme case to talk about there, but that's one of the technologies that's available to us out there. And if it's going to be used against us and against the public, my contention is allow law enforcement to use it to combat those crimes.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, wow,
Yeah,
that you could get it. And there's some arguments to be made about Fifth Amendment concerns, or just in general search and seizure. There's different arguments to be made, but as a police chief, you got to figure out ways to keep it safe. I imagine that you try to balance that, with civil liberties. So
you bet. You want to have good policy in place, and have good protocols set out. And you would never want to make an arrest based off that alone. That's just an investigative tool, and you want to develop your case, and you want to make sure that your policy is strict enough to follow those kind of protocols and those guidelines. And I understand the concerns for that. I understand the concerns for privacy on all things, electronic and internet. And it's something that you have to balance that with. The good Fourth Amendment so far has held true with this new technology as well. It's a good standard bearer.
The one thing that you mentioned in here, and this is something that I definitely wanted to touch on, is sexual abuse of children, and the child porn, and sex trafficking, human trafficking. Those things, we're not immune from them. I know. I mean, the sheriff has told me last year that that stuff is running through the county. So tell me some of the things that Waxahachie PD has been involved with in that, and have you seen a rise in child sex crimes?
I wouldn't say a rise in that. Sad to say, there's a constant in that. I don't have the numbers before me here, but I think it's safe to say that we haven't seen a rise in that. And that's one of those crimes, I'm sure you would agree with me, that one is too many, and it has to be taken serious. And certainly Waxahachie is not immune to those kind of crimes historically, and sad to say,
Yeah.
some of the most heinous and egregious acts.
Oh, it's horrible. It's
Yeah.
horrible. It's the most innocent. The ones we're supposed to protect the hardest is our
Yes.
children. Now, just real quick before I move on, how, there's people who've been snatched off the road. I mean, it's happened. People, women that go missing, just they get
Yeah.
they get trafficked. What can a young lady do to help mitigate that, on a day-to-day kind of thing as they're walking through Waxahachie?
It's important that you made that segue because when you're talking about crimes against children of sexual nature, what we see now is they're closely tied with human trafficking, and age knows no bound there. We had two victims recently, one as young as 11, that has been trafficked multiple times in that regard. And for the youth, I would say be extremely, extremely careful and cautious about who you're communicating with online. Keep your parents involved in that for your own safety. I know it may not seem like it's the cool thing to do, but it could be the very thing that keeps you safe and possibly saves your life. And I would say to the parents, make sure that you're aware of what your young children are doing. Never assume that you know everything they're doing. And because once these things happen, I can tell you that parents often are amazed at how that occurred. They're always shocked and extremely sad that their child has become a victim and prey to these individuals out there.
I never thought this would happen to me. It's probably what you've heard the most. In that,
Yes,
I never thought this happened to me.
yes,
Um,
most definitely. Yeah,
be vigilant, folks. Evil's out there.
yeah.
Evil's out there, and it doesn't take a break. Recently, I saw you at a council meeting. I know that the council is getting ready to move into budget time. It's always
Yes.
budget time, but they're really going to get into budget time. Talk to me about some of the things that Waxahachie PD is going to be requesting, and some of the things you'd like to see, in the budget for Waxahachie PD.
You bet. Excellent question, DV. And before I answer that question, let me say how pleased I was to see you named as the honorary council member for the city of Waxahachie for the month of June. And they
Thank you.
could not have picked a better person to
Thank you.
act in that capacity. And I believe that as much was said by everyone on the council. You're very well known, you're very well respected, and you're very well liked. And I could not be more pleased to see you up on that dais and watching the wheels of government turn up there. I'm fortunate enough to get to watch that every 2 weeks. I'm just nerd enough that I've always loved watching government in action, and I was pleased to have you there. But you're right, budget time is we're in the throes of budget. It seems like we're always in the throes of budget.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you for Waxahachie PD recently, over the last couple of years, we entered into what we call the path to 100. When we started out, we had 83 officers. And when we were looking at the population and the growth, nationwide, the average, what is considered the average officers per thousand is 2.4. That's risen over the last 20 years or so. And the FBI for many years would recommend 2 officers per thousand capita population. We were at 1.7. And instead of asking to go to 2.4, we thought that the 2 officers per thousand capita would be reasonable. It wouldn't be an undue burden on the taxpayer. We want to be mindful of that and be good stewards of the resources there. And so we set out last year, we asked for 5 officers. The council granted those 5. This year we have asked for 6. All indications are good that we will get those, but I don't want to speak for the council. No decision has been made as of yet. And then that would have us at 94 if we get those officers. And then the plan would be to ask for 6 next year. That would have us at 100 sworn officers We're now over 50,000, so that would have us at the 2 officers per capita per 1,000 capita. We'd be a little behind there, but we would say that that's very doable. And Waxahachie is fortunate in that we are. Our city council is very open to having a lot of festivals and a lot of activities. The activities around Waxahachie have grown exponentially. And at the police department, we're happy to do that. We just ask that you give us the necessary resources to help police that and keep those people safe. And we feel like that's a good, healthy number. We've also asked for some things technology-wise, just like we've explained. The council has been good to us, not only for personnel, but for the necessary equipment over the last years. I think they have an acute awareness of what's needed for all city services. And at the police department, we understand we're one cog in that wheel. There are a lot of legitimate asks across all the departments for the city, and we have to be mindful of that. Certainly, I'm an advocate for the police department and for the safety of the citizens, but I got to tell you, DB, I could not be more pleased with the responsiveness from not only our city staff, but also from the city council. I've been here a long time, DB, and I can tell you with all honesty that the city is working together better than I have ever seen it, as is the council as well. And I mean that sincerely.
That is cool. That makes for the mission to be accomplished.
Yes.
When you have those things kind of rolling together and everybody's doing things for the better of the community. And it's enforcing the law, and it could be a thankless job, but it's also can be a very rewarding job, especially when you save kids from being human trafficked or something, or sex trafficked. So it can be a beautiful thing. Now, I wanted to ask you before I close out and give you the last word. What is in your brain in the next 5 years? What do you see being the most pressing issue that Waxahachie PD is going to have to deal with? The one that's really like keeping what you've been thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you on the big picture is as we see this kind of growth, to stay vigilant and keep those numbers where they're either static or better than what we were in the past. As a chief, that's what you hope for. Certainly, you could see a rise in crime due to the population growth. But when you get down to the nuts and bolts of that, what does that mean? Actually, and it's keeping the citizens safe here, making sure that that I give the necessary resources to those who work with me here. It's my job to give them the necessary training, the necessary tools, and the necessary the right mindset to perform that job out there, and to balance those, and to be the advocate for them to do that, because ultimately it's all about maintaining, to the degree we can in this growth, that hometown feeling, that small town to the degree we can. I think Waxahachie overall does a wonderful job of that. We have embraced the growth. We've embraced the new without at a cost to the tradition. And I'd like to see that continue for the city of Waxahachie. I think we're very unique here. I think the council would say that as well, that it's not like this. The former superintendent at the school district here, Jerry Hollingsworth, said it's not like this everywhere. And I have to agree with those words. And we need to work to protect and preserve that. The police department plays a crucial role in that. People need and want to feel safe, and it's our duty to do that. And we need to try at every end to ensure that that's how they feel.
Yes, definitely. Well, Chief, I could speak to you all night, but it's time to kind of close out. Thank you so much for the earlier kind words. It did get a little spicy in that meeting, but
yes, it does from time to time.
It is part of it. But I just wanted to give you the mic to talk to the people of Waxahachie and just kind of let you go.
DB, I appreciate the opportunity, and I love partnering with you on this. The council had made mention of just how fair your approach is to these kind of interviews. And let me echo that sentiment, man. You are spot on for fairness. And I appreciate the avenue to be able to talk to the community. I don't get that opportunity enough. We're busy a lot, and there just doesn't present those kind of opportunities. But what I guess I'd want to say to everyone is stay vigilant, stay safe, stay in contact with us. We recently, when you talk about technology, we have a means to have follow-up with the people who call for our services. They receive a text upon that call, and they're able to opt in or opt out. They'll get information early on, and they're always able to give us a grade afterwards. Both the communicators that they talk to in dispatch and then the officers that respond. And we are listening to those things. We are watching those, all with the intent to improve our service. How can we be more effective, more efficient, more compassionate, and more responsive to their needs? And as the chief of police, you have my ultimate pledge that every single day I work to that end, and I could not be more proud of the 120 employees that we do have here overall. Couldn't be more proud of the 400 or more that work citywide. I've been here a long time, and I've never seen it any better where we're working together for the citizens of Waxahachie. And I hope they see that, hope they know it. We're all dedicated to that end.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming on, Chief. I know you're busy. Can you stick around after the show real quick?
You bet, DB. Thank you for having me, sir.